Okay.
Should we start the recording? What,
Yes,
want
it
me to record
started.
it or are you going to record it?
I'm recording. I'm
You're
recording.
recording? Okay. All right. So you guys all see my screen? Does it say projects week? Sweet. All right. So time for projects. So if you're not there yet, if you haven't taken the exam, is everybody here taking the exam?
No, but this
No.
could be a good motivation for those to get to the
Yeah.
project week.
Yeah. And I'm going to try to do this quick. This is a slide presentation. I didn't make it. It's Coding Dojo's official slide presentation. And I realized that nothing says put me to sleep like a slide presentation. So I will go through this as quickly as possible and sort of outline what we're doing, right? So projects week is something you're going to do in every stack going forward. So Python, you're going to do a project. The MERN, aka JavaScript stack, you will do a project. And if you take Java or C Sharp, whichever you choose, you will do a project in that stack as well. So you can work on the same project if you want. If you are in love with an idea and you start working on it in Python, you can continue that project in MERN, right? You can actually have Python be your backend and React could be your front end, right? That's possible. But again, it's up to you. You could do 3 different projects, whatever works best for you. It's kind of, loosey goosey. It's not really, there aren't any like hard and fast requirements. At least that's the way I look at it. I mean, it's a creative process, so whatever works for you is fine. So, oops, why is it? Oops. There we go. So, why are projects important? Well, we all want to get a job, right? So, a project really shows that you are passionate about this, that you love coding so much that you do it for free. So, you're going to build a project. The employers will look at your projects. That's probably they probably look at that more than anything. If you have an amazing project that is well put together and everything, it's speaks more about you and about your skills than having, a degree or even a boot camp graduation, all that stuff. So it just demonstrates that you can do what you say you can do. And generally they're going to ask you, interviewers will ask you about the projects you've done. So the goals for Project Week is we're going to create what's known as an MVP, and that's not most valuable player. It's a minimum viable product, right? So what does that mean? MVP is uh, kind of like a prototype, right? Or sort of you want to get the simplest thing working and put it out there, right? So I'm gonna talk about the development process in a second, but it's basically like you build something. It's like building a pyramid. You start with the base, and then you pile on top of it until it's a pyramid, right? So if you all you have is the base, then that's what you put out, right? And then you iteratively build and make it better. Okay, so one of my favorite quotes from Steve Jobs is real artists ship. That's SHIP, not real artists ship, right? That means that you put stuff out in the world. You don't just hide what you're building and not share it, right? You put your product out to where people can see it. Okay, so we follow what's known as the agile development process. And agile is a big buzzword in software development. You can get agile certified, right? It's like all the rage, right? All the cool kids are doing agile. So the process is basically you plan, design, develop, test, release, feedback, and then it iterates again. Okay, so once you've finished a cycle of the agile process, you have an MVP. You have a minimum viable product. Okay. Um, the successive iterations on the agile process means that you're adding features. You're adding to your MVP. It's getting bigger, better, and developing better, right? Into what you eventually want it to be, right? You're never done with a software project, right? It's never finished. It always is improving. It always needs to be maintained. So it's sort of like you're giving life to this thing that will sort of develop and take on a shape that you may not even see in the beginning. Okay, so the agile process is contrasted with the waterfall model. So you could say that the waterfall model is the quote unquote old way to do it, right? So we used to do requirements, design, coding, testing, development, and then maintenance, right? So we sort of built this monolithic beast of a project over, months and months and months, and then we finally release. And then once it's released, it's done for the most part, and all we do is maintain, right? When I think of the waterfall method, I think of it was either Windows 98 or Windows 95. I can't remember which one, but they, were ready to do this big release of the new Windows version, and Bill Gates is standing there, and they're all up on the stage, and they got an auditorium full of people, and it crashes, right? So that's everybody's worst nightmare, and that's what we want to avoid, right? So that's why we transition from the waterfall to the agile method, right? We develop something, we get something out there that works, and then we iterate, build on top of that. Okay, any questions so far? I feel like I'm talking and I don't see my chat open. Let me make sure I open that. Is everybody with me? Okay. How am I doing, Vincent? Awesome. Sweet. Sweet. So where do you start, right? What do you do? Oops, sorry. So come up with an idea, and you want to develop what's known as user stories. And let me just say, when I didn't go to Coding Dojo, but I went to a boot camp, and we built projects as well. And this big sticking point for me was, what do I do? What do I build? Right? What I felt like I had to come up with this amazing, earth-shattering idea that was going to rock everybody's world, and is going to be amazing. And that's really a roadblock, right? The best advice I got was, don't overthink it. Come up with an idea, even if it's tic-tac-toe, right? Or a game or whatever, right? A to-do list, God forbid. Do something, pick an idea, and just build a project. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering, right? It doesn't have to be amazing. You're not going to build the next Twitter in your first stack of your boot camp, right? But if you do, Josh and I get 10%. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. No, but seriously, just come up with something and start building it, right? So we start with what's known as user stories. So does anybody have a project idea that they're kicking around that they want to share? No? Okay. I'll come up with something. Let's say a to-do list, right? So I know to-do list is so cliche almost, right? It's like there's a saying that every time a developer makes a to-do list, a puppy dies, right? It's just like so overdone. Josh, what's up?
I've got one.
Okay.
When my first project when I was a student was just a pet lost and found. So just create a post for a lost pet, just like you would see like a little post on a tree or a light post or something as you're going down the street. So I thought, oh, like make a pet lost and found, something practical.
That is a really good idea. Dude, that's a good idea.
Thank you.
Let's talk after this, because that's a good idea. Okay, so
Okay.
we'll take Josh's lost pet app, right? So you don't have to put those sad like posters on the telephone poles that I weep every time I see them, right? You got a website. So what with Josh's idea, we want to come up with user stories, right? So you want to say, as a whatever the role is, I want whatever that you want the user to be able to do, and then you want to state the benefit. So the role, the goal, the benefit. Okay, so Josh, as a user of JV Pet Lost and Found, I want to be able to post a picture of my pet, my lost pet, so that I can get my pet back, right? Easy, right? So you want to come up with, user stories, several of them, right? That's not the only one. It's not just that's it, right? You want to say, as a user I want to be able to check updates, right? I want to get status updates of my pet so that I can see if there's any progress, right? I'm just sort of making stuff up, but I hope you get the idea, right? So as an admin of JV Pet Lost and Found, I want to be able to make sure people aren't holding pets ransom or something. I don't know, whatever, whatever you want, whatever functionality you want in your application, you're going to write a user story for that, right? So your user stories will collect and they become your objectives, right? You want to get that goal met. You want to add that functionality. Okay, does that make sense? Any questions? Okay, cool. So also my advice would be write out a statement of what, like just a paragraph about what your project should be, what you want to accomplish. You look at that writing sample, pull out the nouns. The nouns will most likely, it's not a hard and fast rule, but your nouns will most likely be your classes, right? And the verbs, the actions associated with those nouns will be your methods, right? And so any attributes, any adjectives describing those nouns will be your attributes, right? Will go in your dunder and it. Okay, so that will help you sort of develop that structure of what you want to build. Okay, so once we've done user stories, so this is more examples of user stories. I guess I should have. So using eBay as an example, as a seller, I want to post an item so that I can sell, right? As a bidder, I want to make a bid so I can get something real cheap, right? You guys get the idea, I think. Okay. GitHub projects. So if you go to GitHub, let me go to GitHub. Okay, so if you haven't set up GitHub, I'll do a presentation aside from this just to show you how it works. But if you go to make a repository, I'll just make whoops, let me make one. Whoops, don't look at that. Repositories. There we go. There is, where is it? There it is, projects. So projects is, they're not making you pay for it now, are they? No, okay. So you can, I haven't looked at this in a while. It's not what I expected. Open, closed. Have you guys used this?
What are you looking for to link the project that
Yeah,
you
to be able to do like a Trello board. Isn't that the way you do this?
try clicking link the project and then finding your repository that you just
Ah, that's what I did. There we go. Okay, yeah, so I guess I did this before. So you can, there's tutorials here. You can, different views. How do I add an item? No, there we go. No, new view. That's what I want, boards. Okay, so you're going to collect your user stories here, right? So you're going to add users. So there's draft. How do you add a new one?
add item at the bottom left of that column.
There it is. Thank you. Cool. So I want to, let's say this is the Josh's pet thing. So add lost pet posting function. There we go. So you can collect your user stories, collect your functionality here, and then as you start working on them, you drag it to the in progress, right? And you can, I'm just doing this real quick and dirty because I haven't played with it in a while, but you can add as much detail, bullet points, right? You can modify this as much as you want. And then so you basically, this is a way of keeping track of what you need to do, what you're working on. And then once you're finished, you can drag it to the done. Okay. This is just sort of a way of keeping track of, what you're working on, the functionality you want to add. So this will be a really long list, right? And as you go through, you'll make progress. Your done column will be, add things to your done column, and it'll sort of give you that feeling of, oh my gosh, I'm accomplishing stuff. It's cool, right? All right, any questions about that? And again, I can go into the GitHub setting up a repo and all that stuff separately if you like. All right. And now I lost my presentation. It's here somewhere. Keep going. There it is. Cool. Okay, so we've got GitHub projects. So designing your MVP, this is just getting back to kind of a clever little diagram of why it's important to take smaller steps as opposed to big leaps, right? When the rungs are closer together, it's easier to climb that ladder, okay? And another cute little graphic here. This is what kind of an idea of what you're building, right? You start out your MVP, like your first goal, right, is to make the crappy McDonald's hamburger, right? And you put that out there, you sell it, and then eventually, as people are eating your crappy McDonald's hamburger, you're in the background working on the Whopper, right? Or whatever this is. I don't know. Yeah. So this is the idea, right? You put something out there into the world, your MVP, and then you slowly build and iterate and make it better and better until you're finally at the really delicious looking burger that's making me hungry. Okay. All right. Any questions? Oh, wireframes. Okay. So wireframes, there's a couple of options. There's Balsamiq, which is the application that Coding Dojo uses to make the wireframes for the belt exams, and the wireframes you see on the platform, those are done with Balsamiq. So it's just a kind of a drag and drop. You can design the pages for your website, what it's going to look like as a finished product. So give you sort of a roadmap of what to build. So Balsamiq is one. I believe that has like a 30-day trial. It is paid, right? I think it's like 30 days, but you can use Balsamiq. There's another one that I have had students use called Miro. It's Miro, which is like the Spanish artist. That one I think looks better than Balsamiq. It makes really cool looking wireframe. So you can use either of those. You can use pen and paper, right? It doesn't matter. It's just you're planning before you jump in and start coding, right? The whole idea of a project, or a main idea of the project, is you want to plan before you build, right? And that's my weakness. Like I just jump in and start coding, right? I just want to build stuff. So I kind of have to force myself to think, okay, what do I want to do? Let's make a wireframe. Let's plan it out. It'll go much smoother than if you just jump in and start writing code. Whiteboard. Okay, I've never used Whiteboard. Whiteboard is better than Balsamiq. Okay, cool. Yeah, whatever works for you. If you want to just use a Adobe Illustrator or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just planning. It doesn't have to be an amazing tool. And of course, weeks of coding will save hours of planning. Haha, that's funny. All right. And okay, individual versus group. So the suggestion Coding Dojo gives is make an individual project for Python, and then if you want to collaborate with other people, you can do that in Mern or Java or C# if you take C#. I feel like if you really have somebody you want to work with, I'm not going to say no. You have to make an individual project. If you want to work with somebody, if you have a friend in the class and you want to work with them, I don't see a problem with that. And Josh, unless you see a reason to.
No, I would just say if you work together on a project, make sure it's twice as good as it would be if you were on your own.
Yeah. And be sure to separate, who works on what, because if you do collaborate, things obviously sometimes relationships go awry. So Anyway, okay, so going forward, when more people have passed the belt exam, we'll start having planning meetings. You're going to present your wireframe and your user stories. You're going to show us what you're working on. It's really informal. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to, laugh at you. This is just, we're going to treat this class as a agile team, right? We're all working on different projects though, but still we're going to have like a what's known as a stand-up meeting. And generally a stand-up meeting is 5-10 minutes. Everybody comes together, says what they're working on, talks about their daily goal, and if they have any blockers. And a blocker just means like something that's preventing me from doing what I need to do. And we work together. If somebody's working on a similar project and you're trying to solve like, how do I get a nav bar to show up or whatever, right? You can help each other, we'll collaborate with each other, and solve any problems that we have. Okay, so that'll be going forward. Project week, we'll have the daily stand-ups, and then basically for project week, you're working on your projects, and that's, you have all the time to the rest of the week to work on a project. Friday is graduation or commencement or whatever they call it now. So Friday of that week, we'll do presentations. You're just going to show whatever you've accomplished. If you don't pass the belt exam until later and all you have is a wireframe, that's fine, right? It's not, people learn at different paces, people finish at different times. So, but you want to build something that you can present, because you're going to have to do this in front of an employer someday, right? So you want to get as much practice as you can, develop that ability to talk about your project, talk about what you built, talk about the technologies you used. Okay, so we want to develop that, cultivate that ability to talk using technical terms, and the ability to talk about code and sound somewhat eloquent. All right, any questions? I think I did that as fast as I could. I hope it wasn't too boring. Yeah, so presentations, 3 to 5 minutes, not a big deal. And a short Q&A at the end. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, fears or doubts? If you guys have John next month, you're going to hear that a lot. He says that all the time. All right, that's all I got. I'll stop sharing. You want to stop recording, Josh?